Life's okay though when you have an Evel Knievel doll from when you were a child.
Nice.
Oh, jeez.
And I saved everything. So I have my Evel Knievel doll here. I've lost his helmet though, unfortunately.
Is that Evel Knievel or Carrie Fraser? Because the hair looks the
It
same.
does look like Carrie Fraser a little bit, doesn't it? That's here it is. It's evil.
Well, hey, in the minds of Toronto fans, Carrie Fraser is evil.
Yeah, well, this guy, this is the old motorcycle, the crank motorcycle.
Yep, I remember. I had it as a kid. I remember him trying to jump the Snake River Canyon.
Oh yeah.
Why are we talking about Evel Knievel?
Because I got my Evel Knievel doll out. From my childhood.
Is that a collector's item worth $350?
No, I don't think so.
Kevin,
That's
I said that the guy on the bike there looks like Carrie Fraser. At least the hair does.
What did Carrie Fraser say about the hit on Cronwell? Just that they should have been a charging call on it, or?
I didn't hear his feedback on it, but
Well, I know there's some Twitter buzz about what Fraser said about it, and I just wondered.
I'll take a look. I'll find it while we're
I know
talking.
Frazier said about the Wilson hit on Wisnowski that he would have called it a major, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, the only thing about that, and I like Harry a lot, but it's it's a little easier to make those judgment calls after you've watched
Exactly.
it 5 times.
From a typewriter.
Yeah, when it's not live.
From behind a keyboard, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Harry Fraser was one of the early entertaining referees. I felt.
I agree with that.
He sort of understood that there was some showmanship that goes with being an official. So.
I definitely agree with that. That's a good point. He's still very, very
I
active.
found a Kevin Dineen autographed Whaler puck.
Well, I've got a Whaler puck too. Wow. That's pretty crazy.
Kevin Dineen.
I would love him to be the next coach of the New York Islanders, but I don't want to bury the lead.
Are you this Capuano history?
I think he should be, but you know how
By the
easy
way,
it
we
is.
are lives, just so we know. But
You know how easy it is to get fired in Long Island. It's not. Everybody gets a job there.
If Mike Milbury stayed a decade,
Exactly.
I've got.
So there are no cats in America, and everybody gets a job on Long Island.
That's right.
I think I'm going to put a song out like that.
There you go.
That sounds like like a folky song.
Yeah, I like that. Everybody gets a job on Long Island.
Some of the Spectrum Ice.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Spectrum Ice in a little like a coaster.
And how did they keep the ice from melting?
I don't know what they did to it. But I think it's just the water that they somehow, obviously, this is not still frozen, so.
Well, they had, they had ice from Mellon Arena that they, melted and put in the little. It looked like almost holy water. Canisters for all you Catholics or ex-Catholics out there.
Yeah, that sounds. That's so funny. Yeah, I was wondering about that. They should have just melted it down, but they didn't. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of Nassau Coliseum memorabilia out there. Dan.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll probably be dumb enough to buy some of it too.
Yeah. Do you think so though? I mean, because it's not like the arena's dead to us, but the arena's not dead.
True, they're not ripping it down.
Oh, that's true. You know what I want from there though? I really do. I want one of those press box chairs with the table that comes up, like.
Oh yeah.
Like from the youth, like in school.
Right, like the little
Probably never in that part of the press box.
Up,
I
yeah.
was in that part of the press box where you had a chair with where your table like slid up and fell chrome across, like you did in school.
Yeah, I must have missed that part.
You had one of the nice press box seats, I'm sure, but I was.
Are there nice press box seats there?
Probably nicer than those, but I would love one of those chairs. I mean, I would buy one of those press box chairs. I would, and
Well, I would say when I'm in Joe Louis Arena, and it's really an old, antiquated press box, and there's not much room, and there's certainly no room to walk behind the chairs. I am so glad that rank has its privileges, because I sit, kind of at center ice, and if you're on like one of the corner ones that's by a pole, and people squeezing by to go to the bathroom, it's not a pleasant experience. So.
Well, that's one of the few press boxes that still sort of isn't it sort of still in the stands to a degree?
Well, it's above the the last row in the arena. So I mean, it is sort of just above the stands. Like you can look down and shake hands with the people in
And
front
you
of
can
you.
walk, right? You can walk down to the
Yeah,
stand.
but you know, like there's new arenas have it like that too. I mean, in Chicago Stadium, if the people in the last row, you know, stand up, it's an issue for you. You know, you're
Right.
above the upper deck. So
Madison Square Garden for me used to be the worst. I mean, you had the good seats in the corner there, but it was Madison Square Garden for me was the middle section that would go around. So you'd be between the first and second level. So you had people in front of you and behind you yelling at you like, "Hey, Eklund, you jerk!" Yeah, that kind of stuff, just in front and behind you all game long.
really,
Oh yeah.
Kerry Fraser was very vehement in terms of he should be suspended, and even went so far to say that the referees dropped the ball and not penalizing Kronwall. He said there is a combination of rules violations that might apply to Kronwall's devastating and illegal hit on Kucherov. These include charging an extended arm, elbow, and illegal check to the head. So I think he thinks that it was a joke that he didn't get at least a double minor or a 5-minute major for a hit to the head, and that a game suspension was justified.
yeah. You know, I will say that they really, and they do a good job on the video of explaining why they did it. I know the fans in Detroit are not happy with it, but
Yeah.
you know, if nothing else, you at least have to admire how they come out and explain why.
Transparency.
Yeah, the transparency is commendable. Like I had a better understanding of it. I thought it was a borderline hit when it happened, and the press box was split on whether he was going to be suspended. But you know, when they walk you through it, you know, you understand their rationale for it. And you know, I've had conversations with Brendan Shanahan when he did it, and you know, he'd always say, "Well, you know, how did you see it? Did you see it as one game or a fine?" And I'd say, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "Well, that's where we were. But you know, we came down as a fine, and you came as a one game. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like you were at 6 games and we were at 2. You know, there wasn't a wide gap. So
Yeah.
I don't. That's such an impossible job.
My issue with this whole thing is simple. If you were watching the Capitals Islanders series,
Yes.
that hit happened every game.
Every game.
Every game, 3 or 4 times. I mean, there were so many unbelievably borderline hits in that series that were let go. I mean, that's where the argument comes down. I mean,
Fraser's critique also included Ovechkin's hit on Thomas Hickey,
Yeah.
which he said should have been a penalty and maybe even a suspension as well.
That's a suspension if this is a suspension. I mean, it's like I agree completely. And there were, but it was going both ways. I mean, the Islanders were killing people too.
I mean, Cizikas put his stick in between Wilson's legs and lifted up and got no call.
Yeah, it was a war.
After that, bringing that up, Ovechkin, I think let's just get this over with now. Why don't you talk about Carter Hutton, and then you talk about how Ovechkin never gets suspended, and we'll just get this over with now.
I can't wait till Mike picks the next series, because Mike, I'm getting so many emails from people that say you are anti-Montreal to a degree that's just deafening. You know, like they say, like everything you say is anti-Montreal. Like you think there shouldn't have been a suspension because you're anti-Montreal.
No comment.
No comment. There you go. So, all right.
Yeah, no, I like Montreal is is the greatest city in terms of watching an NHL playoff game, and it's like
I love Quebec. I love the whole province.
Yeah, it's pure enjoyment to go to a game there, but you know that doesn't change the fact that I'm probably going to pick against them in terms of this next round, and mostly because of their offense. Like Carey Price is the best goalie in the league, so now this is where Eklund should say, yeah, but isn't goaltending what it's all about? Yeah, actually, goaltending is what it's all about. So I have no explanation.
Thanks. I don't even have to be here anymore.
I don't see the reason. I don't see the reason for the anti-Montreal sentiment. All I'm doing is pointing out the fact that they can't score, which is truth.
No, but his theory, this is conspiracy theories, and I love conspiracy theorists, so I'm going to back it completely, 100%, and agree with him. That you're saying here. That, because everybody feels that Tampa is going to beat Montreal and Detroit is not going to beat Montreal. So, I mean, that's the majority of people are going to say that. Because
it's consistency here. I picked Tampa to go to the Stanley Cup final. So
no, we're talking about the specific hit. We're talking about this hit. This benefits you. Like if this guy gets suspended, you benefit.
Okay.
That's the conspiracy theory.
I'll see you on the grassy knoll on the 6th floor of the Texas School Board.
Yeah, I think where people are making a mistake, Mike, is that you think this far ahead. Just kidding.
All right, on that note, we should start.
You know what I mean? I think that the conspiracy theorists are just that way. I mean, that's what I always say when someone says that. I'm like, people have these long conspiracy theories about me and different things. I'm like, your mistake is that you're thinking this way further ahead than I ever would think it. Because I just don't think that far ahead. All right, let's start the show. Here we go.
What's the order?
Follow me, Dan.
Okay.
Yes. Hey, Hockey World, it's Wednesday, April 29th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petcher.
And I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast where Kevin, Mike, and guests get together every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m.
Various guests.
To discuss varied guests, that being Dan Petcher today, and to discuss the goings-on in the hockey world, so you don't have to. And I'm going to throw it. We talked a little bit about the suspension and beforehand, and that's I really hate getting into referee debates and things like that. But we'll go to that later if we have time. Let's move on. But to me, I want to throw out a theory that guys, I do not prescribe to Elias Sports Bureau.
We know how you feel about them.
Yes, thank you.
But you do subscribe to Elias Sports Bureau.
I do think Elias has some really interesting ideas when it comes to statistics. But I'm going to tell you right now why tonight's game 7 is going to determine the winner of the Stanley Cup.
Wow.
Right? This is tonight we were watching the whole thing play out. If Tampa wins tonight, I like that Kevin goes to getting a drink at this point. I think that's pretty funny. He's like, all right, I'm going to just have some fun. Because it's not going to be that long of explanation, I promise. If Tampa wins tonight, they will then have to face Montreal. Okay, Tampa went 5-0 against Montreal this year, so people know if you just watch the Grant Geiger show that I would pick Montreal in that series. But I'm going to say they went 5-0 against Montreal, so most people would say Tampa's going to win that series. They will then face the Rangers because the Rangers went 3-1 against the Capitals. So we're going to say the Rangers can win that series. Tampa went 3-0 against the Rangers. That means they have an 8-0 run ahead of them. Tampa hasn't lost to either the Rangers or Montreal all year. Okay. And if they get to the finals, by the way, against the Western Conference this year, Tampa, they went. I have it right here. This is crazy, a crazy statistic. Okay, hold on. All right. Shoot, I just had it. Okay, 6-1-1 against the teams that are left in the Western Conference. Tampa did. So they've only lost one game in regulation against the teams that are left in the playoffs. Tampa. All right.
I don't know why we bother even to play the
I'll see you in late June.
Yeah, I'll see you at the draft, guys.
I know, but were they to lose tonight? Okay, that changes everything because Detroit has lost all 4 times to Montreal.
Oh.
All right, so suddenly Montreal wins that game. Now Montreal has beaten the Rangers 2 of 3 games. So, Montreal then can go to the Stanley Cup final. So tonight we're looking at
Mike.
I know we're looking at either Tampa or Montreal going to Stanley Cup Finals, depending on this game. And both Tampa and Montreal have fared well against the team that they would probably play based on the matchups out west, which is Chicago, who basically has an easy road based on their record so far. So the whole thing is crazy, but tonight's game is everything.
Yeah, Montreal would have to win their next 12 games in the playoffs by the score of 1-0.
Well, perhaps, but I'm just saying. I think that this is a lot of pressure. Now, Kevin, do you agree with my hypothesis that this is Tampa? Tampa can win the Stanley Cup if they win tonight.
I agree that it's fascinating. I mean, it's really interesting that Tampa Bay has had such a successful season against all of those teams, but they did win 32 home games and 50 games on the season, and they were pretty impressive, all the way around. So, and a lot of people have picked the Tampa Bay Lightning at the start of the season. I picked them to go to the final in USA Today. So it's not like we didn't know they were going to be a good team, but I think it's a coin flip whether they beat Detroit or not.
I agree.
Right.
I mean, I think they will because they're the better team, and if they play like they did in Game 6, they should survive against the Detroit Red Wings. And if that's the case, their offense is just so scary dangerous when they get it going that and at some point Stamkos is going to wake up and to join Tyler Johnson, who's been incredible. So when that happens, you're going against Montreal, and they got Carey Price, who rightfully deserves the MVP this season, but their offense, while it has been opportunistic to be sure, but it's still not as dangerous as some of the other teams that are left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think in Game 6 you finally saw like the real Tampa. You've been waiting for that team to show up all series, and I think you finally saw it in Game 6. And if they repeat that tonight, I do think they'll get past the Red Wings. But Mrazek has shown that he could steal a game in this series. So what's to say he can't steal one more? And then whoever goes up against Montreal, I mean, on paper, yeah, all the offense in the world is great. But no one's really scoring in the playoffs if you look at it. I mean, look at the Washington Islanders series. Pretty much every game was 2-1, and those are teams that could they could find the back of the net. The Rangers Penguins every game 2-1, 3-2, 1-0. There's really not a lot of scoring going around now, so we know Tampa has the firepower, but just to pencil them past them because the Canadians can't score, might be a little premature.
Well,
that's fair. That's fair.
That's very fair. And you see my predictions. I do predict that if Tampa plays Montreal, that Montreal will win that series. And if Detroit plays Montreal, Detroit will win that series.
We're betting 2 cookies on that one, because
all right, you got it.
I'll save my prediction till after tonight because I don't I predicted Tampa in 7, but I'm not going to go ahead and pick them.
You just want me to get more angry emails, Mike. Admit it. You're just trying so hard.
Sure. It's like no, but the thing is, and I mentioned before we went live, was the fact that not only is Kronwall for the Game 7 because of the suspension. Marek Zidlicki did not take the morning skate in Tampa, and he's probably not. Babcock said he's probably not going to play tonight, which means that they're going to insert, I believe it's Marchenko into the lineup, which makes their defense even more inexperienced. But I was impressed with Marchenko. It doesn't mean the absence of Kronwall and the absence of Zidlicki does not eliminate the Detroit Red Wings from being able to win this series. They walked into Tampa in Game 4 with all the momentum in Tampa's. Or Game 5, with all the momentum in Tampa's favor after that late comeback in Game 4, and they shut them out 4-0. So I don't put anything past the Red Wings. So, but I picked the Lightning. I think they'll win, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
I also picked the Lightning to win, but I would say this about the Marchenko addition. I think actually he's the best kind of player to insert in this situation. He is a very conservative defenseman. And I think in this case, because he is a younger player trying to fit in, he's going to play he already plays a safe, simple game, and I think he'll do that again tonight. And I think that's probably easier than bringing in a guy with a little bit of skill who wonders whether you ought to try to make a big play. So, they'll plug him in, and he's also not your normal, inexperienced NHL playoff player. He came out of the KHL, and the talent level. There's some debate about whether it's right at the AHL or a tad below or whatever. But the fact that is true is that the coverage over the KHL in Russia is such that the players, are playing under a microscope. Like there's a spotlight on them, so they face the pressure of playing in their home country in a league where the media pays attention to it. So he's come over here having played in some pretty big games. And I think that makes him more ready than if it was just a guy who had come up through the minor league system and only had played in the AHL. So, I think Tampa's team is a better team. I think the Red Wings have played well. They were in games 3, 4, and 5. They were the better team, so they certainly have a shot. And we'll just have to see what happened. But the Red Wings, if they won this game, would not be the first team in NHL history to overcome the loss of their number 1 defenseman to win a big playoff game. I mean, Kronwall is not Bobby Orr.
Right.
He's a good player. So
Calgary seemed to be able to play without Mark Giordano in the series against Vancouver.
They look just fine, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
they haven't skipped a beat.
The one benefit is that Marchenko has played in the series already. He played, I think, one or at least two
games. Yes.
Yeah, and he hasn't looked out of place at all.
Right.
And this is Detroit. Remember, this is Detroit, and Detroit has the ability to play with injuries like no one else. I mean,
right.
Because they have always I mean, they played last year with a ton of injuries and made the playoffs. This year they had their share of injuries, and they have a system set up in their minor leagues that where these guys learn how to play the game the same way they're going to play them on the Red Wings. They really have the best kind of transition from one to the other.
It's not exactly insightful to say that goaltending is going to be a key for tonight, but I think this is something to watch. Tampa took a lot of dumb penalties in Game 6 that allowed Detroit to climb back in the game. I think Tatar's goal was a power play goal in the second period.
Right.
If Cooper doesn't get them emotionally in check and gives Detroit 3 or 4 opportunities on the power play in the first and second period, that's opening the door to Detroit, with guys like Datsuk and Zetterberg scoring big goals and putting them ahead. So Cooper's going to have to tell that team, which doesn't have a ton of playoff experience. They have some players who do, but not overall, not a lot, to tell them to cool their jets and just play their game. And if they do that, they can win. But if they give Detroit power play opportunities, that could kill them.
That's a great point, Mike. I mean, you can't give the likes of Datsuk and Zetterberg that many chances, or guys like Nyquist and Tatar. They can step up and score goals too. You can't take stupid penalties, but you also have to think how many penalties are going to be called tonight.
Well, and here's the just to add to that. I think I looked it up yesterday, and I believe the Tampa Bay Lightning have been the best 5-on-5 team in the postseason, and the Red Wings have been the worst. Like, they are so much better than the Red Wings 5-on-5, but the reason the Red Wings have been able to hang in there has been their special teams. They've done a good job of killing penalties in this series, and they've done a good job of finding some goals on the power play.
Now, Dan, wasn't it one penalty in that Caps Islanders game in Game 7?
You could have called 6 for each team, honestly.
Yeah, that was insane. And the one penalty was ridiculous. I mean, that compared to what was happening throughout the game, I thought the one penalty was so bizarre.
I mean, there was a couple boarding calls. There was a couple high sticking calls. There was a high sticking call on Ward's goal that wasn't called. Kuznetsov got a stick in the face that wasn't called. There was interference on every face-off, and the NHL wants to know why no one's scoring. Even during the regular season. The pick plays that you can set now that is interference never gets called anymore, and this is why you don't have a 100-point scorer anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think the league's wondering why there's no scoring. I think it's the fans that are wondering than me.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. Right. That's what call the rule book. We can. I don't like. I get the letting them play. I absolutely get that. I don't. The stick infractions, some of the minor slashes and things like that. But you have to call boarding. You have to call high sticking. You have to call the no-brainers.
Dan, this is a throwback. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I mean, the series that everybody in Toronto remembers, Game 7 in Detroit at Joe Louis Arena, Leafs, Red Wings, one penalty was called.
Right.
One penalty in the third period. That was it. And they weren't beating the crap out of each other, but there was more than one penalty being called. Bill McCreary, I think, was the referee in that game. He put the whistle away.
Right.
And I mean, you can't in the first 6 games of the series call everything underneath the sun and then call nothing in Game 7. There is such a thing as consistency. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Frustrating. It's frustrating for the fans. It's frustrating for the players because at some point you don't know what a penalty is anymore. I mean, I saw Mike Milbury on camera the other day just take the rule book and chuck it. He says, "Why bother?" And and Phil Esposito yesterday was pretty outspoken about it too. He said, "This isn't this isn't entertaining. When you don't know what a penalty is and what you don't, just call it either. I think everyone's just looking for some clarity and some consistency. That's what they're looking for, and it's not just series. It's not just one particular series or one particular play. It's all throughout the playoffs.
Well, somebody probably needs to stand up for the officials, so I guess I'll do it. Like I'm buying everything you guys are saying because I think
I'm not blaming the officials actually. Yeah. I think it's coming right from the league.
Well, I don't think it's the league at all. I think I get it. Like I've noticed it too. There's been a little inconsistency. It seems to me we've backslid since the rule reformation caused by the initial lockout. But this is just part of sports. Like the strike zone is different for every major league umpire. Mm-hmm. When you're watching the NBA playoffs, driving to the lane is different in the finals than it is in the regular season. In terms of calls being made, there's holding on every play in the NFL. It's just a matter of what gets called, when, and by whom. the human error, the human element of officiating makes it difficult. And it's easy for us to say, well, we need a level of consistency. And as I said, I do agree that it does seem to have reached sort of an epidemic in this postseason. But I think it's hard. I think it's hard to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I don't. I've had readers said, well, there must have been memos. They told to not call penalties. I don't think it's any of that. I just think it sort of evolves and over time, and you just you get into bad habits, and then you see the guy you're working with doesn't make the calls, and and then there needs to be sort of a rule reformation. Affirmation and start all over again.
Yeah. I think it's human nature. I think these officials go into that Game 7 and say, I don't want to be the reason why a team loses or wins.
But when someone gets their head drilled through the boards,
I know. And then basically what they're saying is, okay, now the other team can go ahead and drill the other guy. It's let him go. And I'm like, I don't think that's right, but I understand it. And if and I mentioned Kerry Fraser. That I think is the carryover from Kerry Fraser's name is mud in one city in this league because of one call that he made. It wasn't even in a Game 7, but of one call that he made at a key time during a playoff series. I don't think that these officials want to be the guy who is at the center of the story. They want to let the players make the news and sort of blend into the background. That's what I think is going on.
I think too is Bobby Clark had a great quote a couple of days ago where he said that when he played and the puck went into the corner, he went into the corner to win the puck. He didn't go into the corner to put the guy's head through the plexiglass. And it seems like there's been an evolution over time where everybody
definitely reached tough levels, Dan. When Bobby Clark is coming out about fair play.
I know. I found that very ironic as well. But he brings up a good point when he
does bring up a good point. But we to call this an epidemic now is officially allowed because
I thought, while no saint, I thought he brought up some valid points. The players go, you go into the boards to win the puck and not try and, do what he did, I guess.
Let me just play devil's advocate here. Do you really believe that? Do you believe when they go in the corner, they're looking to put the guy's head into the glass?
Yes,
I don't think that at all.
I know from personal experience, there were times I wanted to,
I don't think so. I agree. I think that what happens is a few isolated things happen, and they're not. I mean, they're big things that happen, but they're not all the time. And there are certain players that definitely play a different way, but 99% of the time they are going into the corner to win the puck.
We all know in 1972 that Bobby Clark was going for the puck when he broke Valerie Harlow's.
Right. Of course. Yep.
Yeah.
Once again, consider the source, obviously, but I think,
Bobby Clark, I've heard him quoted for a while. For that to be the first quote I've heard from Bobby Clark in a while is a pretty crazy thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Bobby Clark on fair play.
Yep. You never thought you'd see the day, right?
Oh my gosh, Bobby Clark had players on the team, so he didn't have to play fair. I mean, that was the whole thing with Bobby Clark. There were players on the Flyers team that enabled him to play a dirty game like that.
Yeah, let me point out that when I was growing up and was a fan of the game, nothing drove me more crazy is that Bobby Clark was the fire starter, and then the guys on your team then would challenge him, and then the whole herd of Flyers would be coming in. Bobby's not have to battle because Kelly and Schultz and they did all the. But he sure stirred it up. He put the first stinger into you, and then then it would be the attack of the killer bees.
I can't wait for Sean Avery's comments I can't wait for Sean Avery and Matthew Barnaby to come out and comment about this stuff.
Barnaby did say something, and I forgot what it was. He wasn't happy about this either. I thought it was ironic when he was talking too.
Thomas Sandstrom or Claude Lemieux. Come on now, guys. Talk about fair play.
Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter's next.
We're waiting for a missive from Matt Cook.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dale Hunter, School of Etiquette.
We need to wave the white flag. Yeah, I mean it's just fun. I mean, can Clark say that in all seriousness without? Yeah, he can because Clark is nuts. I mean, he's absolutely he absolutely is nuts. I mean, I think I told you guys the story before, but he and I, we didn't get along too much, and when he was in Philly, and it wasn't that he had anything against me, but we had some funny little run-ins, and he knew exactly who I was, and knew I was reporting on rumors, so that of course wasn't like he really liked to not have rumors get out. So every time I would pass him, I would say hi to him, and he would laugh at me, he would go and just
Nice.
walk by. Yeah, so he's crazy. He's absolutely, literally crazy. So let's from Bobby Clark to Capuano. I want to since we have you, Dan, today, I really want to talk about this situation. Capuano is. You brought up something really interesting in the pre-show. That maybe he's the coach that gets you to a certain level, and then I said, if it takes 10 years to get to that certain level, I mean this is usually when you hear coaches taking you to a certain level, it's like a 3-year process that they get through a certain level.
It was slow and steady, but they're finally at that level.
And that level, I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, Capuano it's amazing that he's one of the longest running coaches in the NHL. I mean,
because no one gets fired in Long Island.
But he's only won one playoff series in how many years now?
He's never won a playoff series.
You're right. He's never won a playoff series.
They haven't won a playoff series in 20-something years.
This was his first Game 7. This was his first chance to win a playoff series. So, yeah, I mean, who I think would fit for this, and it's just I know out of curiosity, I think this is Ken Hitchcock's spot.
Yeah.
I think this is where he goes. And this to me feels right. I mean, we talked about Toronto, we talked about San Jose, and I've heard people talk about those teams watching and waiting to see what happens with Hitchcock. But this could be a spot. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Well, you bring up a good point. It's he would be look at Mike Modano. Look what the career Mike Modano had before and after.
Yeah.
With him as a head coach, where he got him to buy in. Hey, if you score 5 less goals a year or 7 less goals a year, and you become really good in your own end, we can win Stanley Cups. That might, they need someone to take him to the next level. I like Jack Capuano a lot. I think he's a good human being, but you get to a point where you level off with a coach, and some of his decisions have to be questioned. I mean, I get sitting Brock Nelson for a game. I get sitting. Actually, I still don't get sitting Anders Lee for a game. I'm not sure what kind of message you're sending him when he was the only guy to step up to Tom Wilson after, like the Islanders said, they did not like the Wisniewski hit. We can dissect it, whether or not it was a clean hit. We can go. They didn't like the hit, so they had a problem with it, and he was the only guy to stand up to Wilson. And I respect someone who fights somebody knowing he's going to get his butt kicked. And that's exactly what Lee did. And his reward was getting scratched in Game 6 and scratched in Game 7. So you left 25 goals on your bench in lieu of Colin McDonald, who I don't dislike, but he's a minor league player, and he's been a minor league player most of his life. You're only scoring 1 or 2 goals a game. You leave 25 goals on your bench. It's noticeable. I just think that this team needs more structure. It needs a more X's and O's coach. Capuano's very hands-off. He's not a great in-game manager. He has his formula, and that's what he sticks to, even when it's not working. And you see, Mike Babcock doesn't have the most talented Red Wings team. He has very good players on the team, of course. But is there anyone better at making changes and getting the most out of their players when things aren't going well? That's what they need. You need to be able to win when you're not playing your best. And I think the Islanders were scouted very well. They were kept outside the face-off dots. There was an inability to get to the net, get any kind of traffic consistently to the net for the past couple months, and this coaching staff had no answer to it. And then you have a power play that just fell off the map the second half of the season, and you can't even muster any shots on goal. Game 7, everything on the line, 11 shots on goal the entire game, only 3 shots from your forwards. It's very telling.
Yeah, that was.
And I can keep going for another 2 hours, but I won't.
No, I hear you. No, so what kind of coach do we need? I mean, is it a Hitchcock type coach?
I think Hitchcock would be a good fit. I think Kevin Dineen would be a good fit. You have to see who else comes out. I think, of course, Babcock would be a great fit. He'd be a great fit anywhere if he became available. I don't know if he'd want to come there. But, now we're talking about Brooklyn. We're not talking about Long Island anymore. They're moving up to the big city. They might need a name going into the big city too. So, they need something. There just needs to be a new message there, because it seems like when the game's over, Capuano's yucking it up with Barry Trotz, and then he's saying, it was a great season. No one expected us to make the playoffs. That's not true. When Boychuk and Leddy were acquired, people expected them to make the playoffs. And it was like us first, blaming the media. Like, look, we expected you to be here. You can't be satisfied with just making the playoffs anymore. That's not good enough. Just being at the dance isn't good enough. You need to be the prom queen once in a while.
Yeah, and I agree. And then I mean, it's amazing Capuano's made it to this point. I mean, they've showed a great amount of patience with him. I really like him too. He's a great guy.
I love him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and I have friends, good friends of ours, are really close with him. So I kind of have a connection with him. But I think that it's time to go. And you're not seeing anything unique from the Islanders, and I think that's the tough thing. And this was a great 7-game series, but in Game 7, the Capitals just showed they were a lot better.
Right.
And that's what it came down to, and they shouldn't have been necessarily better because the Islanders at times of this year were way better than the Caps, but the Caps kept progressing all year. The Islanders definitely didn't. They slowed down as the year went on, ran out of steam, whatever. By the way, did you just see the Katie Strange text tweeted out a little bit ago? The line of the day from Coach Babcock was, "There's a deli called Schwartz's in Montreal that I'm dying to have a sandwich from." So Mike Babcock talking a little trash in Tampa.
Well,
this team has an AHL. This team isn't an AHL roster anymore. If you look at this Islanders roster, where it was 2-3 years ago and where it is now, this is a good roster that's built to be good for a long time. Now it needs a coaching staff that can pull it to the next level.
Well, I think Hitchcock would be a pretty good choice.
I think so.
He can get those players to another level. He's a motivator. He presses all the buttons. The thing I think would be funny is the fact that he pretty much drove Yaroslav Halak out of St. Louis, and
that's
would be
true
with the Islanders.
That's a very good point. I didn't think of that.
This is the way I view it. I don't think Capuano really had a team of any level of expectations until this season, but he's been there long enough where it feels like it's time for a change. And when we can feel that, the players feel that.
Yep.
And so I think it does make a lot of sense that they just need a new face to take them to the next level. I'm sure there's a sense that he's kind of run his course there, and for that reason alone, he's probably going to have to pay a price. I'm not sure that Hitchcock is the right guy. Hitchcock's going to be 63 years old. Mm-hmm. Coming up. And this is sort of a younger team, and to me, it feels like Mike McClellan or a Balsma would be a better fit, for this group. Balsma had the experience working with Crosby. I see Tavares as a Crosby-type player. Crosby played pretty well for Balsma. I think a more modern coach might be. Not that when I say that it makes it sound like I think Hitchcock's out of date, but because I don't. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem the right fit for me when I just say Hitchcock. For them, I just see a younger coach.
Yeah, Kev, you bring up some good points there, and I think too when you see the post game and the exit interviews and all that, you see Capuano saying, "Hey, we did our best. It was a great season." And then you see the players who are like, "This is not acceptable. This is not good enough. We need." It seems like there's a clear disconnect between what the coaching staff is telling you and what the players are telling you. And usually, you're on the same page there. And one guy, rah rah rah, we did our best. Then you have your captain saying, "This isn't acceptable."
Well, Garth Snow's got to realize that you're not going to have the opportunity to have this many good coaching candidates out there in one year. So if he's going to move, he's going to move now. I just think one funny thing about it, if it's Bilesma, that won't do anything for the Islanders-Pittsburgh rivalry, will it?
Yeah. Here's one other thing too. I just want to throw a name out there, and this is not based on any inside information, but Dave Tippett is a tremendous coach, as we all know. And I was thinking the other day, I wonder if he's up for this reset/rebuild in Glendale, Arizona. I've kind of thought about that. I mean, will there be a discussion between him and Don Maloney? Because I think when you're in a reset/rebuild mode that you have a high reputation coach like Tippett is, I think you actually owe it to him, in my opinion, to say, hey, Tip, do you want to be part of this?
Right.
Because if you don't, there's a lot of openings now. You've served us well When they had very few dollars to work with, he and Maloney kept that team pretty competitive.
Right.
And I think a guy like Tippett would be a great fit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'd mentioned him. I thought of Pete DeBoer came to mind as well, maybe as a possible candidate.
Yeah.
And I think Arizona is a job. If Tippett leaves, I think Arizona is a job more conducive to a younger coach that can build with that team as they rebuild. And I honestly think that that's the same position with Toronto, because all the big, and I wrote something about this a couple days ago, all the talk of the big names, McClellan and Babcock going there, don't make a lot of sense, because they haven't even started the tear down, and they're going to tear down and they're going to rebuild. So any of those big coaches are probably not going to contend for a playoff spot for 2, 3, maybe 4 years. They're not going to sign up for that. So a guy like a Jeff Blashill or the name of Kirk Muller has come up in a couple reports. They make more sense for a team like Toronto or a team like Arizona, because they would be allowed to maybe grow and be there for a couple of years without the expectation of winning. Whereas somebody like Babcock, he goes to Toronto, the expectation is that team's going to turn around a lot quicker, and that team is not going to turn around a lot quicker with what they're going to go through in the next couple of years.
He's not going to a rebuild.
No.
What's really interesting right now about the coaching thing is with all the available coaches and a lot of available vacancies in high-profile places, we're hearing nothing.
Yeah.
And to me that shows that the world is waiting on Mike Babcock. That there is this whole thing that we are going to sit back, and if Babcock is eliminated tonight, all hell could break loose, because like McClellan hasn't signed yet, and I thought he would. I actually was told that there was a good chance he would sign before Babcock was eliminated. But he hasn't, and we haven't heard anything really even about interviewing, right? I mean, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah. I think you're right to want, but I also think everybody's waiting to see all the coaches that get dumped.
Yeah.
If you're a coach and you're opening now, you want to see, okay, what are the Blues going to do? What are the Islanders going to do? I mean, you can make some good guesses about what they're going to do, but you might as well just wait it out. People wanted to see what the Penguins were going to do, so I think it's all of the above. This is such a unique coaching market that I think everybody wants to have it settled before they start, making decisions on where they're going to interview. And I'm speaking of the coaches, and then I think GMs want to see everybody who's available before they start to interview. Like in the past, we've had teams sort of single out the guy they want and just go after him.
Right.
And I think there's so many good available coaches now that everybody is thinking, hey, I just want to make sure I get one of this group.
Right. There's 6 or 7 quality coaches, maybe even more. And is Boudreau safe now? You guys think? I think so.
Yeah.
Even if he loses,
I wouldn't say for sure. Like I'd say yes.
Yeah.
But what if Calgary went in there and swept them or something?
True.
I don't think that's going to happen. But
well, after the first round is usually where you'll see coaches, like after the regular season, after the first round. That's where you see coaches dumped, right? So.
Right.
And that's what we're about to see. We're about to see Hitchcock. We could see somebody else. We could see
and another interesting situation will be Edmonton, because they haven't done anything with Todd Nelson right now. He's still the interim coach, but the speculation is that now that they have McDavid, and with that core, they can attract a McClellan. They can attract maybe even a Babcock. If they pony up the money, and I don't see why Daryl Cates wouldn't pony up the big money to bring in a prominent coach. The one thing that he can't do is run the risk of ruining those young kids by, and I'm not saying that Todd Nelson would, but I think a prominent coach, somebody with a championship pedigree, that's where they need to go with that team to get them to get those young players to improve and get them to the next level. So I think that's a destination, and I think that that job might open up.
Well, that's another name we haven't even mentioned is, what's Julian going to do in Boston?
Right.
I mean,
if he becomes available, that changes the landscape.
Yeah, and Julian going to Edmonton to me, makes some sense. It's a very, very unique situation where there's going to be a lot of openings and a lot of good available coaches, and everybody is looking for different styles of coaching depending on where they're at, and like Ken Hitchcock's going to end up somewhere. Like he's a veteran coach, and he'll get a spot if if the Blues indeed get rid of him. I'm assuming they will, but I don't know. I mean, I don't like what you don't know in these situations is how does ownership feel about Doug Armstrong?
Right.
How much blame are they assessing to him on what happened? So, you can always sort of speculate what's going to happen, but you don't really know.
I just think St. Louis played a tough team. I think it's just really, I think St. Louis has continually gotten better under Hitchcock. This is what I don't understand. And this year they were better than they were last year. It's not like this team is falling backwards. And I know they haven't won out of the first round, but
he's only won one round in 4 years, and it's 3 first-round exits in a row. And I got to be honest. I mean, I'm aware of 2 players in particular who, are struggling with the toughness of and the weariness associated with having Hitch as their coach. I mean, he's a media favorite for sure because he's so entertaining and fun to deal with. But he wears on players. There's no question about that.
No, that's for sure.
The question out of St. Louis is like, do they overreact to the situation or underreact? Do they blow that team up? Do they make major changes after having such a good season? It's like
they don't blow the team up, but I think that there's the opportunity there to tinker with the raw. I mean, you've got players there like say Berglund, who's making over $3 million, who they supposedly trying to trade the last year. I wrote something yesterday about players going to particular teams, the teams that lost in the first round. I think a guy like Phil Kessel is a fit in St. Louis because they've got guys like Backus and Oshie and Paul Stastny that he played with the U.S. Olympic team. I think the pressure wouldn't be on him to be the man there. He'd be part of the group, and they have a lot of young players. It's just a question of whether they would want to take on the $8 million salary. But I mean, a move like that is not out of the question in St. Louis because I think that mix has been there for long enough that they know that they need to either add to it or change the chemistry to get them to go to the next level.
What about their goaltending?
Well, I mean that's long been what I thought I'm not a big Elliott fan. I thought they should go with Allen, but Allen, I mean, in a way, you can't blame him solely for the loss.
Right.
But he did drop the ball. He did not step up and play, and he's a rookie goaltender, so that's what you have to find out. But I don't think they're going to give up on Jake Allen, but goaltending has been a problem for them. Ryan Miller wasn't the solution. Neither was Halak. Elliott, as Kevin said yesterday, really hasn't ever had a chance to get to play for them in the playoffs, and they went to Allen and he let them down. So, who did they go out and get? Antti Niemi, Jonathan Bernier? I mean,
they really like their minor league goalie too. I can't remember his name.
But by the way, Mike, you were right on that. Like I thought all season long. Well, it's almost become kind of almost a cliche to say, well, there's goaltending questions in St. Louis, and I just thought, well, one of those guys will step up.
Right.
Allen was a terrific minor leaguer, but when it came down to it, their goaltending did hurt them. And you kind of said that all season, like you were leery about them because of their goaltending. It turned out that was the case, in my opinion. I mean, if their goaltending had been stronger, we could have seen a different result.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sometimes your young players just aren't ready yet. The first time around. I mean, you saw it with the Islanders. As good as Lee, Nelson, and Strome were, 60 goals combined pretty much during the regular season, really wasn't there in the playoffs, and they lost a lot of one-goal games.
Yeah, and St. Louis has some young players coming up. Ty Ratty, Robbie Favre, Lindbaum, one of their defensemen. They have young guys coming up through their system, so they can maybe afford to move out guys like a TJ Oshie, like a Berglund.
Berglund makes sense.
Yeah, I mean they can move some players out, not because that they're not good, but because they can either get draft picks for them or just change the feel in that room, and maybe that's what is necessary.
Agreed. Now, you guys get major points if you can figure out what's interesting about the Rangers Twitter feed here.
Oh, can I comment on this, please?
Yes, go ahead.
We started this 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so this is coming.
Once again, the Rangers.
So you know what it is. So don't.
I know
stay
exactly what it is.
You stay out of it.
Yep.
So then, Kevin and Mike, what's interesting about the Rangers Twitter feed? I did not realize the Islanders started this.
Yep, we did.
Sorry.
Well,
All right, so
they're listing the numbers, and then the names.
Nope. There are no capitals.
Ah.
Sorry. Sorry, the Rangers have taken all the capital letters out of their Twitter feed, which I guess the Islanders did.
Wow.
And why is that? Just because they want to be like everybody else's Twitter feeds?
No, because right. No, because they're playing the Washington.
They're playing the Caps, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yep,
If you go hashtag no caps on Instagram, you'll see all kind of Islander stuff for the past couple weeks.
Okay, there you go. So,
Okay.
Once again, ripping us off for stuff.
Yes, the Rangers are playing the Catskills. Thank you very much. Try the veal.
there you go. So that's
Talk about a series I have no vested interest in. My goodness.
yeah. So that's. I mean, that's all right. So we got through the coaching things. I guess the last thing I wanted to get, Dan, is kind of your opinions on this next round, because we're gonna go through ours tomorrow. But
Okay.
I wanted to see where you are with these series.
Well, I just tweeted out before the show started that I've hitched my ponies to the Flames bandwagon. I think they're just fun to watch. I think it's just what they're doing right now is just really exciting, and I they got their work cut out for them against the Ducks. But boy, I'm really enjoy watching them play, and I'm gonna be pulling for them in the next round. With that being said, I think the Ducks win in 5 or 6 games. But
We gotta watch the Cranky Hockey Radio Show.
with all that being said, the Ducks are clearly the better team.
Yeah.
But the Flames got something going right now. I think that Blackhawks and Wild series, your Stanley Cup representative from the West could be coming out of there. The Wild got a lot going for them right now, but it just seems like if Chicago get their goaltending straightened out and consistent, they just seem to step up. Their star players just step up at the right time. You need a big goal, there's Jonathan Toews. You need a big moment, there's Duncan Keith. So, right, I like the Blackhawks in the next round. I'm rooting for the Flames, but I like the Ducks. I think the Rangers will take care of the Capitals. And then, Montreal, Tampa, I really don't know much. We need that to be settled. Detroit, not yet.
Yeah. Well, we know that whoever Tampa's going to win the Stanley Cup if they win tonight. We've learned that. And
Correct. Correct. So why bother? Why'd you even ask me the question?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. But we also had, if you got to watch the Cranky Hockey Radio Show, which we recorded today, which will be posted after this, recorded right before this, but where Eric Jahachik tipped us off on something that I did not know. That was incredibly crazy. That is, the Calgary Flames have lost 20 straight games in Anaheim in the regular season.
So they do.
So that's what I said. The first thing I said is that means
or Eliash.
There's no question that they're going to win Game 1 in this series. I mean, if we've learned nothing, right?
For the home office in Prague, Dan.
Yes, the home office in Prague. Yes, that totally means that the Ducks are losing Game 1 at home.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, you got to take into account that that the Ducks just swept a team too, and they've been off for 9 days. All this plays into Calgary's favor in the first game. That said, it still could be a 5-game series for the Ducks, but I think it's a first game win for Calgary. It's just, but yeah, so we'll get into this tomorrow for sure. It's all the time we have for today, guys. We appreciate it. It was a fun show. Make sure you watch Kevin at USA Today. What are you working on now at USA Today, Kev?
Well, I'm in playoff mode right now. I'll be heading off to Chicago to do that series. I mean, that's obviously one of the sexier series with the Wild playing as well as they are, and the Blackhawks just being the grizzled veterans that they are. I like that word, by the way, grizzled.
Grizzled is a good word, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with tomorrow. Tomorrow, you're going to also get the Owen predictions, by the way, of the mascots versus each other, which actually did pretty well in the first round. So I still don't know how to handle the Wild, what that means.
Game of Thrones, the Wildlings are quite a warlike.
All right, let's go with that.
Versus
an American Indian, you think they would take them down? I think they might. Yeah.
Well, he's got a hatchet.
Yeah, the Wildlings they're warrior people. They just had to burn on this week's episode. They just had to burn the leader of the Wildlings at the stake because he wouldn't bow to the king. So
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
No, that was actually a couple weeks ago.
No, definitely. I've never watched one episode of Game of Thrones.
It's your loss.
Yeah, it is your loss. It's quite an entertaining show.
It's on my list of things I need to get caught. I need to watch.
I'm pathetic. I am.
The one trend in modern television compared to when I was growing up. And when you started out, it was kind of cool that they brought reality in, so main characters died. But now they die in every series, and
Don't get attached.
it's becoming now where it's gone the other way to the point where you hate to watch because they're just killing off main characters right and left on every series known to man.
Like on the
That
The most
and
surprising kill off of all time though for me is the House of Cards one. That one.
Oh yeah, yes.
and the way that it happened.
The way that
Yes.
happened. That one really threw me.
I
back.
just started watching that show like a month ago, and I'm almost finished the season 3, but I watched the first 2 seasons in like 10 days, pretty much. And when that moment happened, I was just like, I actually had to rewind it and watch it again because I couldn't believe what I just saw.
Yeah, that was
Which one are we talking about?
House of Cards, and that
The first episode of season 2.
the first episode of season 2 where they kill off a main character in a shocking fashion.
Yeah.
And that really threw me. That was like, what? That was just crazy. I somehow didn't know. I just was.
I think after I watched that episode, I just texted Eck and said, "WTF?"
Yeah, I told you. I said when you get to this, I said you're in for a pretty big surprise because I was following you. You were catching up on it. My wife and I have been watching this series Nashville, which is really pathetic because it's basically a soap opera. But
You said it.
I know. But there
They
you go.
haven't killed anybody in that series.
No one's been killed yet. While they're trying.
But
I
wait,
highly recommend The Fall on Netflix. The Fall is very enjoyable. About a Belfast serial killer.
is that the one with Gillian Anderson?
Yes, it is. It's quite good.
Okay. Well, anything with her is good. So.
Yes,
Have you been watching? This we're getting into like. Have you been watching The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt? Have you watched that one?
I have that on my list. I'm gonna watch that next. I heard it's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's really funny. It's written by Tina Fey. So
That show drove Kevin away.
Yeah, it did. He's like, I'm out.
Kimmy Schmidt, I'm hanging up.
Ellie
Remember-
Kemper was great though. I loved her on The Office.
Oh, she was amazing in The Office. She was the only thing that kept The Office going in the last years for me. But she's
To me, the best show on TV, hands down, right now, is The Blacklist.
Yes, I love it. One of my favorite shows.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
Check it out. It's great.
it's on Netflix. Watch it. I'm telling you right now.
We're completely off topic.
There we go. Well, this is a good basketball game behind me. Remember the Atari basketball game?
I was watching a lot of these. Your little loop there while we were doing this at
Yeah,
times.
there's
I'm
like
wow, I
there's
played that
8,000
game.
games that
I was just watching Eck change color as
I
the
changed colors with it too because the camera went.
Eck the chameleon. There you go.
Yeah. But no, it's really that's a really good one back there. There's a couple that just pop up like this is from the Sega game.
This is a rip-off of Tetris.
Yeah,
Tetris. This is GP Rider from Sega.
I had GP Rider. I remember that.
There you go. Yeah, it's really interesting how it's just and then they go into like Monopoly. What's that? Monopoly on Game Boy.
Monopoly video game? Okay.
On Game Boy, right? It's
Okay.
All right, we gotta go. Talk to you all soon. Thanks, guys, for watching. Enjoy the Game 7 tonight. You're going to find out who the cup winner is by the end of it. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you soon.